Going live. Right, just give it a second. All right, I think we're live. Hello, everyone. My name is Allison. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the executive director of the Gallatin County Democrats. We're here today with a quick update from Representative Jim Hamilton about the Montana Legislature and the House Rules Committee that met this morning, and kind of a twisty, turny tale, say that 3 times fast, of what's been going on with the House rules. So Jim, could you give us a quick overview of what happened this morning?
Good afternoon, Allison. You said it exactly right. It is a twisty, turny tale, and it could go on for a long time if we really wanted to take all the twists and turns. But the short story is this. It's the House Rules Committee that was meeting this morning. We'd already been told that they were going to remove the most offending amendments to last session's rules, which was what I call the chair is king. In other words, the committee chairs could throw bills in the garbage can without having them be heard. And so we got there, that was done, and so we thought it would be a 20-minute meeting. And at the end of the 20 minutes, we were still going, and other amendments were being pulled from the last session's rules. And the bottom line, when it was all done, after all the twists and turns, we didn't approve any rules. And there's a lot more to that story than that, but because of that, that means we would go into, unless there's another rules meeting scheduled next week, which at present there is not, we would go into the new session with no rules. That's not that unusual and has happened before.
So who voted against the proposed rules? If the Democrats are in such a minority position, who else voted to kill these amendments?
Well, it was a strange bedfellows. We ended up with 3 of what I would call the very hard right, and all of the Democrats voting against the final package for very different reasons, mind you. But that was the coalition, and it stopped the rules for now.
So wild things can happen. Anything is possible, it turns out.
As it turns out, we did not expect that at all. And we actually, as I said, thought it was going to be a 20-minute meeting. They'd pulled the most egregious amendments off, and that would be that. But after they did the other pulling, we had what was almost the 2019 rules. There were minor differences between what we voted on in this weird coalition and the 2019 rules. For the Democrats, some of it was still to our disadvantage, which is why we voted against it. But then with these 3 hard right folks voting against it, that gave us enough votes to stop the whole thing.
It really just blows my mind. So what happens? So if you don't have a meeting next week and the session starts in 13 days from today, so on January 4th, what will happen if there aren't any rules? Or how does that work?
Well, the way the rule reads is that rules end when a new legislature takes its seat. So really that is considered after we're given the oath on January 4th. Okay. So theoretically, the moment the oath ends, we have no rules in that moment. And normally not an issue, because fairly quickly we would vote to adopt the 2019 rules as the emergency rules, or temporary rules is the right word, until we could finish this negotiation. However, there's one very significant issue, which is with no rules, we have no real obvious answer to what is an acceptable vote. Can you vote remotely? Do you have to be there in person? There is no answer right at the moment. So that'll be an interesting one in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, so I'm trying to get over my disbelief of all of this. I think for me, I'm thinking about the fact that we've known, I don't know, that you've been working since the election, November I've even forgotten the election date at
Fourth,
this
I think, yeah, November
point.
4th.
November 4th,
or 3rd.
on how the rules could be. People on the rules committee have served before, like these aren't the freshmen. And the other thing that I always think about is that COVID's been in our lives for the last 10 months and doesn't seem to, like, where's the planning that's happening? And I know that Democrats have been planning for this, but maybe not as much on the other side. And I just wonder, like, what actually will Monday, January 4th look like then? Like, if you aren't, like, if negotiations aren't happening, when are you supposed to be sworn in, like taking the oath? Is it at noon on the 4th?
I think it's noon.
Okay. So we just really have no clue what's going to happen then.
We don't.
Okay.
So remember, there are House rules and joint rules.
Right.
And the joint rules have been voted on and will be presented, but they sort of don't make sense if you don't also have Senate rules and House rules. So you can't just layer in joint rules, and the joint rules are pretty much where all the COVID stuff is.
Yeah.
The House rules actually, the other side of the aisle got sidetracked today because they started talking about that stuff, and it's not in any of our House rules.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even, wasn't necessary, not really even needed to talk about. The other thing that happens on January 4th is, as I said, normal session, normal times, everybody would be there taking the oath. Nowhere in the rules, Constitution, or law does it say we have to be in person to take the oath. So that's another interesting element. But normal conditions, we'd be there, temporary rules would be passed, negotiations would continue. 2 weeks from then, we'd have rules or whatever, and we would pass those new rules. But there's those two oddball factors right now that we just don't know that are coronavirus or COVID related.
Okay. All right. So my last question is always, is there anything that we as the public, as your constituents, can do or should do in the next 13 days about this in particular?
I think just keep your eyes peeled for meeting next week. That would not surprise me if that came up. You pointed out that we've been at this a while, and why the heck can't you get it done? A pretty objective observation would say because the hard right and the moderate right are arguing with each other. And there are things that are very important to the two of them that we're kind of just watching because we don't have enough votes to run it ourselves. So both the hard right and ourselves would like the moderates to vote with us. And at present, they seem to be somewhat inclined to do that. So that's really what it's about. And apparently their negotiations are not going well.
Okay.
So back to your question, sorry. What to do? Watch for next week.
Okay.
At this point, there's really nothing for the public to respond to because other than the horrific coronavirus rules that are in the joint rules, but those will next be voted on the floor. Okay. And so that would be the same thing I said last time we got together, which is, if you know legislators in other places that are moderate Republicans, or even here, then talk to them about voting against the joint rules because they're not acceptable. Nothing you can do on the House rules at this point because there's nothing to comment on.
Okay. Well, thank you for this update, Jim. We really appreciate it. I think the twisty turviness of this session is only getting started, for good or bad, better or worse. This is how it's probably going to be, is just my guess. So thank you. We do intend on keep everyone posted. We'll share a video next, we'll do another live stream next week if it calls for, but if not, we are going to start doing twice weekly live streams on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5:30 in the evening to catch you all before dinner and to get an update of what's been happening in the session so that we're all informed. So stay tuned for that. Mark your calendars and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Jim, for this quick update. It was great.
Well, thanks. Stay tuned. There's bound to be more entertainment around this.
Oh man, you're never bored.
Thanks,
All right.
Allison.
Thank you.